Chapter 504. A tribute to the border warriors, for the soldiers in front of him were his comrade. They had made so many sacrifices in order to defend the country. So, he would not abandon his companions just to escape and survive alone. Their only task was to kill as many people as they could. Smack! Feng Qing punched Nalan Zhangqian's chest with his fist. He balanced himself from falling after stumbling a few times. He wiped away the blood on the corner of his mouth and continued to rush forward. Nalan Jing closed his eyes and could not bear to see what was going to happen. In the blink of an eye, he reached the enemy. He lifted up the sword in his hand and slashed. Someone fell in front of him. "Father, you can rest assured that I will kill more enemies. I will not let your sacrifice be in vain." The windblown dust rose from the yellow sand. Unlike the bloody killing on the battlefield, somewhere not too far out in the distance was a girl wearing a green skirt. She seemed to be weak and her pretty face was pale. She was riding a snow wolf, braving the wind and dust. "Xian. Are you okay?" Qing Yuan looked worriedly at Xian in front of him. Xian anxiously answered, "I'm fine. I feel sorry for troubling you." "Qing Yuan, will this affect the task assigned to you by Fengyun Manor?" Qing Yuan smiled helplessly. His eyes were filled with gentle love and a sense of mischief. "You are my fiancé. I will certainly take care of you. You can be at ease. I will let other people do the work for me. Everything is fine." Xian smiled slightly. She eventually closed her eyes, hiding the shadow in her eyes. Not long ago, the house lady of Fengyun Manor found her and asked her to lure Qing Yuan away. She did not know what happened. After all, Tang Yu was the little lady of Fengyun Manor. There must be indispensable benefits in the future if she helped her. Therefore, she ran to this place alone and enticed the spirit beasts to chase after her. She even crushed the jade badge that Qing Yuan had given to her. In this respect, Qing Yuan could feel that she was in danger and would come to save her no matter what. She had succeeded. The little lady, Tang Yu, said that she would let her stay in Fengyun Manor after she returned. She would also be a disciple of Fengyun Manor. She no longer had to worry about the Avilders in Liu Yun Kingdom. "Qing Yuan." Xian raised her eyes. I heard that there was a grade 6 spirit herb here. I came this far for it. If you have this spirit herb, presumably, you can have stronger strength. I am truly sorry. I did not expect it to be just a rumor. I also did not expect to encounter such a danger. The grade 6 spirit herb was extremely rare even in Fengyun Manor. Qing Yuan caressed Xian's head while holding the snow wolf. His eyes were filled with a smile and gentle. "I appreciate that you have this intention. It is enough." Xian had encountered such a danger because of him. He had to save her no matter what. When Qing Yuan regained his composure, he found that the battle ahead was still going on. It was normal for a war to occur at the border of Liu Yun Kingdom. When he went to rescue Xian, he had passed the border. After all, the war between the kingdoms had nothing to do with him. He had never been idle. But now, Qing Yuan saw Feng Qing stepping hard on Nalan Zhangqian's head, forcing Nalan Zhongqian to bow to him. Qing Yuan's face darkened. Chapter 505. A tribute to the border warriors. A gentleman prefers death to humiliation. If two countries were engaged in war, killing the enemy's general was acceptable. Humiliating people, was it not too much? Qing Yuan. Xian saw Qing Yuan wanting to move forward. She hurriedly took his hand as her heart thumped quickly. Nalan Zhongqian and Nalan Jing, moreover, looking at the situation, they were unlikely to survive. Thinking of what Liu Yun Kingdom had done to Long-Ao Kingdom, she felt an indescribable but refreshing feeling in her heart, as well as the pleasure of revenge when she saw Nalan Zhongqian being trampled under someone else's feet. Qing Yuan. That person is my former fiancé. Qing Yuan stopped. He knew that Xian had a fiancé called Nalan Jing. The marriage had ended up with nothing. That person was Nalan Jing. Xian lowered her eyes and looked sad. In the beginning, I was sent by father to marry Nalan Jing for the purpose of the country's alliance. I initially did not like him, but he often visits Long-Ao Kingdom deliberately to please me. Later, He had an affair with my maid, the one you saw last time. Qing Yuan was stunned. The masked maid appeared in his mind. Somehow, he had always felt a little strange whenever he recalled the masked maid. But that feeling quickly vanished again. Then what? Qing Yuan frowned and asked. Xian smiled. I never want to snatch someone's lover. Therefore, she gave Nailin Jing to her maid. Who would have known that Nailin Jing is not a person with an incurable passion? He abandoned my maid after sleeping with her. He caused my maid to lose her voice and even ruined her face because she was reluctant. I pitied my maid, so I allowed her to stay by my side since. Qing Yuan was the kind of person who would never investigate his lover's past. Therefore, he only knew that Xian had had a fiancé, none other than that. Coupled with the annulment of the alliance between both countries, Long Ao Kingdom's council never it announced in public. The Nailin family felt disgraced after being given a cold shoulder. Therefore, they also did not announce the annulment to the public either. So far, no one knew the reason for the annulment. A member of the Nailin family, the general of a kingdom, how could he be such a loser? Qing Yuan frowned as he felt an aversion. If he had fallen in love with someone, he would never care about her identity. He would not touch the girl's body before marriage. Nailin Jing, this villain should not be saved. Qing Yuan shook his head and felt pity as he thought of the masked maid's encounter. The girl was very miserable. She was married to a bad husband. Xian closed her eyes, hiding the feeling of abomination and hatred in her eyes. When she looked up, she immediately smiled gently. Qing Yuan, you don't understand the world at all. My maid, she was just a turf hunter. Otherwise, she would not have seduced him knowing he was my fiancé. In the end, she was abandoned. It serves her right. I sympathize with her, but it doesn't mean that I acknowledge her behavior. Xian smiled with pure eyes. To me, power is not that important. You are now a member of Fengyun Manor. If you want to leave Fengyun Manor one day, I am willing to endure the hardships of traveling and going to the ends of the earth with you. Qing Yuan's felt a sense of warmth. He suppressed the pity he had for the maid after hearing Xian's confession. Chapter 506, A Tribute to the Border Warriors 6. There was no longer a good feeling toward the maid. Xian, you can rest assured that I will never let you suffer and will give you a peaceful life. He would marry Xian despite being opposed by Fengyun Manor. He would marry her without hesitation. Let's go. Qing Yuan sighed. He turned around and walked away. There was a bloody war on the battlefield. Feng Qing trampled on Nailin Zhongqian's head. Nailin Zhongqian lay on the ground as he had difficulties breathing. Nailin Zhongqian, you are so stubborn. As long as you are willing to surrender, I will spare your life. Feng Qing looked down coldly at the man under his foot. Nailin Zhongqian supported himself using his long arms. He used all his strength and forced Feng Qing to move back a few steps. He stood up from the ground. He stood still, although his body was shaking. His face was covered with dust, and he smiled scornfully and contemptuously. Feng Qing. The Nailin family's soldiers will never surrender. This was the soul of the Nailin family. He slowly closed his eyes. He then suddenly opened his eyes after a bit. All fellow soldiers, we need to guard the land behind us. There are also many unarmed people. If these people set foot on the land will shed blood like water and cause countless deaths and injuries. Listen, all members of the Nailin family should collectively self-destruct. Even if we lose our souls, our corpse will be immortal. Our flesh and blood will block the invaders like a gate. We swear that we will guard the border till death. Qing Yuan paused. He slowly turned back. What he saw was a determined face. Deeply engraved in his mind. If Fengyun Manor was in jeopardy, he would protect the elders and the others without caring about his life and death. Nonetheless, if he were to protect an ordinary disciple, he would never make any sacrifice. However, the general of the Nailin family would not hesitate to make such a sacrifice for ordinary people. Self-destruction meant no chance to reincarnate. He used his life to defend the country. These generals would be the only ones making such a choice on the mainland. It was shocking and unbearable. Indeed. Qing Yuan felt a little disturbed. It was for the soul of the Naylan family's soldiers. These people were innocent no matter how many mistakes Naylan Jing had made. Could he really watch the warriors sacrifice themselves? Xian, I'm sorry. Naylan Jing is scum, but I can't leave the people of the Naylan family. The Battle of the Kingdom had nothing to do with the reclusive world. They could not get involved in these things either. Somehow, Naylan Zhongqian's perseverance provoked his emotions easily. No one disrespects the hero. He admired Naylan Zhongqian more than Feng Qing. Xian's face changed, and she bit her lip hard. She suddenly thought of an idea. Her body stumbled, and she fell forward. Ah! Qing Yuan turned back after he heard a panicked scream. When he saw Xian fainting, he suddenly panicked and swiftly approached to catch her body. Xian, how are you feeling? Qing Yuan's eyes were filled with worry. Xian was injured when trying to look for the spirit herb for him. Thus, he would never let anything happen to her. Chapter 507. Who allowed you to self-destruct? I Qing Yuan, I'm fine. Xian coughed twice weakly. She laughed helplessly. Don't worry about me. You go and help the people in the Naylan family. I don't care how Naylan Jing had treated me before. I don't want them to die in the war. But, if you interfere with the fights in the secular world, will the people from the reclusive world punish you? Qing Yuan was stunned. He raised his head and saw Xian's worried eyes. His heart was heavy and his gaze fell on Naylan Zhongqian's determined and strong face. Qing Yuan would not interfere with the fights in the secular world. But, it would not be against the rules if he wanted to stop someone from self-destruction. Naylan Zhongqian laughed for a long time. His laughter was rather harsh in this blood-stained battlefield. His presence was strong and his manic power appeared. That time, not only were the enemies frightened, even Feng Qing seemed frightened too. Naylan Zhongqian, you really don't want to live anymore, do you? As a spirit warrior, a person self-destructing would not make much difference to him. But, he would surely be a disabled person if he survived after so many people chose to self-destruct in front of him. Feng Qing, I, Naylan Zhongqian, will never allow anyone to humiliate our Naylan family in my lifetime. Even if my soul is destroyed, even if I could never come back in another lifetime, I'll never allow you to wantonly mock our soldiers. The soldiers from the Naylan family stopped their fights. Their spiritual force rushed toward their dantian and there was chaos in their bodies. They had explosive power. Naylan Jing closed his eyes slowly. Unknowingly, an exquisite and cute face appeared in his mind when he was nearing death himself. The young girl was cute and naughty. She seemed naive and innocent. All of it appeared in his mind. He might never meet her in this lifetime again. They had met a few times only. But, her innocent and naive face was deeply imprinted in his memory. There was a loud and angry roar under the quiet sky. It was thunderous. Even the sky shook under the force. Who allowed you to self-destruct? Naylan Zhongqian, you're really looking for death. I'll torture you after we're back. You unfilial son. Naylan Zhongqian froze and he opened his eyes quickly. At that moment, an angry old face appeared in his vision. He could not help but burst into tears. Father. Here he is. It's really him. He knew if his father found out that he was not home, his father would definitely come and rescue him as soon as possible. It was because he was his son. Naylan Zhongqian walked quickly toward his father as the feeling of rebirth overcame him. There was happiness on his handsome face. He opened his arms and he intended to give his father a big hug. But, who knew, Naylan who was so infuriated that he slapped his son. He was outraged. You unfilial son. Who allowed you to self-destruct without my permission? You have even brought along my grandson and numerous soldiers to self-destruct with you. When we're back, I'll definitely punish you. You little bastard. Naylan who was still trembling when he thought of the incident just now. Luckily, he made it on time. If not, we would have been separated forever and that bastard would never appear in this world. Self-destruct? He even learned how to self-destruct. If I don't punish him heavily, then I'm not Naylan who. Chapter 508. Who allowed you to self-destruct? 2 Nalan Zhongqian asked helplessly, Father, if I'm a bastard, then who are you? Nalan who did not know how to respond to that. Nalan who did not answer his question. It was because he had raised his hand and given Nalan Zhongqian a second slap. You, bastard. Nalan who wanted to scold Nalan Zhongqian more, but in the end, he swallowed what he wanted to say. Nalan Zhongqian's body was shaky, but there was a smile on his face. He seemed to be not worried anymore. Father, you're finally here. It's so good. I know that much has happened in the Imperial City. You would surely come and rescue me at the earliest hour after you have resolved the disaster in the Imperial City. Our Nalan soldiers could now be spared from death. It's so good. Nalan who was stunned. He coughed awkwardly. You're my son. How would I forget about you? You be careful next time. If you want to self-destruct again, I'll definitely kill you myself. Nalan Zhongqian coughed twice. His face was pale and it seemed like he would faint any time now. Nalan whose facial expression changed. He scolded angrily, Feng Qing, you villain, how dare you hurt my son and grandson? I'll kill you today. Otherwise, I'll have the same surname as my son. Feng Qing did not know how to respond to that. Don't you have the same surname as your son? Feng Qing looked at Nalan who before turning to the 3 masters behind him. His facial expression worsened. Why are you still alive? Why? There were numerous warriors gathered at the imperial city of Liu Yun Kingdom. How come Nalan who is still alive? Nalan who turned to Feng Qing. He was angry. All Nalan soldiers listen to my order, kill. Kill every enemy. Take revenge for our deceased companions. The soldiers were in despair before Nalan who appeared. Otherwise, they would not have chosen to self-destruct. But his appearance gave hope to every soldier. Their fighting spirit peaked. Kill every enemy from the 4 kingdoms. Boost our Liu Yun Kingdom's dignity. Were the soldiers of Liu Yun Kingdom, well near allow anyone to humiliate our Liu Yun Kingdom, well never forgive anybody who invaded our Liu Yun Kingdom. Qing Yuan stopped walking. He shook his head and sighed softly. It seems that they don't need our help anymore. Xian, let's go. Xian lowered her eyes. She clenched her fists tightly. Her breathing was heavy and there was a cloud in her eyes. How come the Nalan family could escape this time? But there was still a lot of time. She could take her revenge on the Nalan family when she entered Fengyun Manor in the future. There was a soft smile on Xian's face. She seemed like a person who had achieved what she wanted. Nalan Jing, there's a vast difference between us. I left you so that I could marry a person from Fengyun Manor. Without me, you can marry a minister's daughter from the secular world in the future. The marriage between us was forced and arranged by others. That day, your aunt brought along her soldiers and attacked our Long Ao kingdom. My father had no choice but to offer me as a peace offering. Now, there's no more Nalan Yang in the Liu Yun kingdom. It was understandable that I broke off our engagement. If you want to blame somebody, just blame yourself for being weak. You can't have a good woman like me. Qing Yuan turned and he did not look at the war behind him again. But a familiar presence came toward him. It seemed that many years had passed and that presence appeared in front of him again. Chapter 509. Who allowed you to self-destruct? 3. It was unbelievable. His body froze slightly. He was afraid that it was all but a hallucination. He turned around rather gingerly. 10 years. They looked for her for 10 years. Finally, she's there. Qing Yuan clenched his fists tightly. His breathing was rapid. His eyes were opened widely for fear that he might lose sight of any detail. Nalan who had beaten Feng Qing and he was already lying on the ground. Nalan who stepped on him harshly and there was an arrogant and smug smile on his face. But Nalan who seemed to feel something and he raised his head slowly. The sword in his hand fell onto the floor with a thud. It speared Feng Qing's leg and blood gushed out. He gave a shrill cry of pain. But nobody was bothered about Feng Qing at that moment. Nalan Zhongqian, and his son, and even Master Wei and the others. All of their eyes were fixed onto a woman not far away. Their eyes were filled with fright and shock. They looked like they had just met a ghost. Their eyes widened. You, Qin Feiyong pointed at the girl who was wearing a light yellow long dress. His heart shook at that moment. He was so nervous that he could not even utter a complete sentence. Her features, facial expression, and presence are exactly those of the Empress. It's impossible that it's a mistake. It's impossible. Isn't she dead? Why is she still alive? Is she a zombie? She might be a zombie. Look at her slim face. It seems like she's undernourished. She might not get enough nutrients from the ground. So, she's that slim after all those years. Feng Qing wanted to scold somebody, but all the words died in his throat when he saw Nailin Yang. He was frightened, nervous, and shocked. He still did not hold back, and his voice was shrill like the cry of a ghost and the howl of wolves. There's a ghost. Empress Nailin. How could Empress Nailin crawl out from the tomb? Is it because of the attack on Liu Yun Kingdom that she is forced to come out from the tomb? She's really here to take revenge on us. Feng Qing burst into tears because he was frightened. It was unknown as to how far a damage Nailin Yang had done to the people of the Four Kingdoms that year. They were trembling badly just by seeing her there. They just wanted to look for a place to hide. Xian was different from the others compared to their shocks. She turned her head slightly to the side and she saw the excitement and happiness deep in Qing Yuan's eyes. Her heart was heavy and she clenched her fists tightly. What kind of relationship does that woman have with Qing Yuan? No. Qing Yuan is mine. Nobody can take him away from me. Qing Yuan's steps faltered and he stopped walking toward Nailin Yang when he heard her first sentence. Father, elder brother, little Jinger, I'm back. Nailin Yang looked past the numerous people in front of her. Her gaze fell on her beloved family members. There was only the Nailin family in her eyes. She never even noticed Qing Yuan, who was now pale not far away from her. Nailin, who was stunned. He held out his calloused hand and touched Nailin Yang's face. It's warm. Yanga, are you still alive? Nailin, whose voice was shaky, and he was afraid that he would not receive an answer that he wanted. He was scared. He was scared that Nailin Yang appeared as a ghost that day because of the war. He was afraid that it was all but a dream, and when he woke up, his daughter would no longer be there. Nailin Yang held Nailin Hu's hand. She saw Nailin Hu's white hair and she was sad. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Chapter 5:10. Who allowed you to self-destruct? For I'm sorry, father. I'm sorry. It's me who has wronged you. Your unfilial daughter is back. She kneeled down heavily on one knee. She could not stop crying. Nailin Yang could imagine how devastating the news of her death would be for her old father. Her elder brother would also be devastated. Nailin Jing's body was shaking. He raised his head slowly and his eyes fell on Feng Ruqing. His Adam's apple bobbed as he wanted to ask her something. But he could not even say a word then. Nobody wanted to break the warmth and the joy at that moment. Feng Ruqing walked toward Nailin Yang and helped her up. She smiled and turned to look at Nailin Hu. Grandpa, I left Fengyun Manor that day because I wanted to go and fetch Mother. But I didn't know what kind of challenges she has faced out there. I'm worried that you'll be worried about us too. So, I didn't tell you about it. Now, I have finally done what I wanted to do. I have brought my mother home. Feng Tianyu walked forward and he pulled Nailin Yang into his embrace. HS smiled and there was a sense of bottomless gentleness in him. Yanga, the general doesn't blame you. You left because you wanted to protect us. No one would blame you. It's because for us, there's nothing better than having you back. Nailin, who could not help but cry. Suddenly, he laughed out loud. There were tears in his laughter. It was mixed with great excitement and agitation. I have sacrificed my whole life for our emperor and kingdom. There's good news for me at last. Finally, there's a reunion for my family. Feng Ruqing lowered her eyes. She did not say much. It's still too early to talk about reunion. Feng Ruqing still had a younger brother. She did not know where he was. It was not a reunion before she could locate where he was. Qin Chen walked toward Feng Ruqing and held her hand softly. The youth's eyes were determined and as clear as water. Your family will surely be reunited. No matter how large Kangyu mainland is, I'll definitely sacrifice everything I have to look for your younger brother so that your family can have a reunion. Cousin. Tang Yin rushed toward Nailan Jing and touched the scar on his face. She almost burst into tears. Cousin, who hurt you? I'll ask Chen Ning to kill him for you. Nailan Jing was stunned. He said awkwardly, I'm not your cousin, I don't care. Xiao Qing's family is my family. Her father is my father. Her elder brother is my elder brother. Feng Tianyu, who was standing at the side, was speechless. When did I have another daughter? Can I say no? Then, what about her husband? Tang Yin's facial expression changed. She corrected angrily, love rival. Nailan Jing was speechless. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. It seems that this young girl likes my cousin a lot. It's not easy if we want to make her normal again. Feng Ruqing's eyes looked past Nailan Jing and were focused on Nailan Zhongqian. After a short while, she turned to look at Feng Qing, who was lying on the ground. She squinted. Did you attack my uncle and cousin? Feng Qing's facial expression changed. The four kingdoms have worked together this time because they were helped by a warrior from the reclusive world. You can beat our warriors, but you might not beat that young master. If you're sensible, that's right. You're talking about Jiyu Zhenyang. Feng Ruqing seemed not to care much. Feng Qing was stunned. He had never met the young master from the reclusive world before. The one who had always contacted him was a palace maid. He had eavesdropped before and he knew that the young master was addressed as young Master Zhenyang by that palace maid. How does Feng Ruqing know that name? Unfortunately, that young Master Zhenyang is a guest at my mother's house. Feng Ruqing smiled beautifully. Do you want to go and meet him? Chapter 511. Who allowed you to self-destruct? Feng Qing clenched his fists tightly. I don't understand what you're talking about. It's fine even if you don't understand. You just have to know that Jiyu Zhenyang was escorted there as a guest from the Divine Herbs sect. You don't have to know about other things. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and a long sword appeared in her hand out of thin air. She walked toward Feng Qing. I always take revenge for whatever anyone has done to us. You have hurt my uncle and cousin. I'll kill you for what you have done. I just hope that you won't be the enemy of our Liu Yun kingdom in your next life. The long sword speared him and blood gushed out from Feng Qing's neck. His eyes widened as they were fixed on Feng Ruqing. In the end, he still could not recover from what Feng Ruqing said. Jiyu Zhenyang was escorted there from the Divine Herbs sect. The word escorted has a different meaning here. That word is certainly not what it sounds like, given that young Master Zhenyang has a very deep resentment toward Liu Yun kingdom. Feng Qing regretted what he had done before he died. He regretted being the enemy of the Nailan family. He even regretted taking the initiative to die. Feng Qing closed his eyes unwillingly. The enemy troops had lost him. There were more people in the Nailan family now. The enemy troops soon became like a heap of loose sand without any spirit to fight on. They soon surrendered. One never kills those who surrender in a war. The fights between kingdoms were different from those fights between families. They would never cease fighting until one family was completely destroyed. No matter what kind of mistakes were done, those soldiers were just obeying the order from their superiors. They had no choice. So, it was the emperor and ministers who were wrong here. The people obeying their orders were innocent. Nobody was not afraid of death. Nobody liked war. An emperor enjoyed the joy of the soldiers fighting for more territories for him. But those soldiers risked their lives for those territories. That was why Liu Yun kingdom never fought for more territories. They just protected their own lands and did not allow for any invasion. They would never ask their innocent soldiers to die for them. However, it did not mean that the Nailan family would take those surrendered soldiers under its wings even if they did not kill them. Those people surrendered and they would be accepted as the soldiers of Liu Yun kingdom but not of the Nailan family. The soldiers from the Nailan family would choose to die instead of surrendering. So, they did not need any surrendered soldiers. Your Highness. Nailan Zhongqian walked forward with staggering steps. He greeted the emperor respectfully. I did not disappoint you. I have protected the territory of Liu Yun Kingdom. Feng Tianyu sighed and patted Nailan Zhangqian's shoulder. Brother, you've worked hard. How Feng Tianyu had addressed Nailan Zhongqian was filled with deep and true emotion. Now, Nailan Zhongqian was not Feng Tianyu's minister and he himself was not an emperor. They were just a family. Nailan Zhongqian was stunned. There were tears in his eyes. It's not hard. No. Brother, you've worked so hard. Surely, there will be times when you need to work harder. Feng Tianyu was not brave enough to say that. He was afraid that Nailan Zhongqian would never return to the imperial city and guard the border immediately if he knew of the truth. Feng Tianyu wanted him to act as an emperor for him in Liu Yun Kingdom. Nailan Zhangqian's body shook slightly. He turned slowly and his gaze fell on Nailan Yang. He cried ceaselessly. Sister, welcome, home. A separation of 16 years. A pain that lasted for 16 years. Now, she's finally back. It's wonderful. Nailan Zhongqian covered his face but the tears still flowed down his cheeks from between his fingers. He was filled with a sense of great excitement. Feng Ruqing smiled slightly and she felt a nervous stare from some distance away. She could not help but turn in that direction. Suddenly, Qing Yuan's pale face entered her vision. It happened so suddenly. Chapter 512. Who allowed you to self-destruct? 6 Mother, do you know him? Feng Ruqing saw how the man was staring at Nailan Yang. She frowned and asked. Nailan Yang was stunned. She followed Feng Ruqing's gaze and saw the man. She was surprised. Qing Yuan. 10 years ago, Qing Yuan was still a young boy. Now, he had grown up and he seemed mature. Mother, do you know the person standing beside him? Feng Ruqing smiled slightly. Xian, she's the princess of Long-Ao Kingdom. She was my cousin's fiancée. But, the people from Long-Ao Kingdom came a year ago and had broken the engagement. They left my cousin behind. All of the people thought that the empress had died many years ago and Long-Ao Kingdom never had the intention to break off the engagement. But, it was rather baffling that they came and broke it off that time. Feng Ruqing could not understand it but now she understood after seeing the man standing beside Xian. Nailan Yang lowered her eyes. At first, I know Xian's mother. We met each other in Liu Yun Kingdom. Jing'e was there that day too. I saw how Jing'e cared for her unborn child in her belly. So, we made that engagement for them that day. She sighed softly and continued speaking. But, one cannot force another in the issue of love. I said before that if they could not be together in the future, they could break off the engagement. We made that engagement privately. But, who knew Long-Ao Kingdom would do that kind of thing? So, the emperor offered to have an arranged marriage with their princess just to soothe my anger. So, I chose Xian. But, they still did not get together in the end. It's all right. We cannot force anybody to love. I don't like to force anyone. If Xian is good, it's fine if I grant what she wants. Nailan Yang raised her eyes and saw that Qing Yuan was walking toward her. Xian had gotten down from the azure snake and was obediently walking next to Qing Yuan. Empress Nailan, you're still alive. Xian smiled slightly before Qing Yuan could speak. She frowned slightly soon after. She said weakly and apologetically, I'm sorry, Empress Nailan. My fiancé wanted to help General Nailan just now but he did not do so because he wanted to take care of me. My body is weak. If you're unhappy about that, I'll apologize to you. I'm truly sorry. She lowered her head. She seemed honest and sincere. She did not seem to notice that all the people present had different facial expressions now. Nailan Yang turned cold and distant. At first, she had no bad impression of Xian. She believed that one cannot be forced to love. But, what Xian said made her heart heavy. She smiled coldly. Are you trying to show off? Nailan Yang walked forward slowly. She sneered. You just want to show off your man, don't you? He can sacrifice everything for you without bothering about others. You just want to show us how important you are to him, don't you? Why do I remember that your fiancé is my nephew? Where did this man come from? There was cold sweat on Qing Yuan's forehead. He tugged at Xian's hand to indicate to her to stop talking. Xian was jealous. Why does Qing Yuan care about her so much if she's already a married woman? Empress Nalan, I did not mean that. Mother. Feng Ruqing smiled slightly. She broke off the engagement with my cousin long ago. These people looked down on us since you're no longer here. They disliked my cousin. But, it's fine that they had broken off the engagement. Otherwise, I would have broken it off for him. Chapter 513. Devastated Qing Yuan. Tang Yin was infuriated. My cousin is so outstanding. Why would that woman break off their engagement? What Xiao Qing said is right. We really should break off that engagement. She's not a match for my cousin. Xian's facial expression worsened. She looked at Qing Yuan, who was standing beside her. Before this, Qing Yuan never allowed anybody to humiliate me. Now, he just stands there and lets them humiliate me without saying anything. Xian, stop talking. Qing Yuan was almost completely devastated. There was a rule in Fengyun Manor. Nobody could uncover her identity no matter where they were. He wanted to tell Xian about Nalan Yang's identity, but he was not brave enough to do. Certainly, Qing Yuan did not know that Nalan Yang's identity was no longer a secret for the reclusive world. He did not have to hide the truth anymore. I just want to apologize. If there's anything more that you're unhappy about, I'll apologize again. Xian seemed a bit relieved and there was an unreadable smile on her face. I think that Empress Nalan is not an unreasonable person that will force me to marry young Master Nalan. Qing Yuan pinched Xian's arm and his handsome face was rather twisted now. Xian. Xian felt Qing Yuan's anger and her heart was heavy. I have known Qing Yuan for a year now. He is always gentle toward me and he is never mean toward me. Now, he is angry because of Nalan Yang, mother. Feng Ruqing squeezed Nalan Yang's shoulder. Since she thinks that we're villains, then let us be the villains. How's that? Xian was stunned. She looked at Feng Ruqing without quite catching on to what she meant. Are these people really planning to force me to marry Nalan Jing? How could they do that in front of Qing Yuan? But, Feng Ruqing is always a villain. What couldn't she do? She was disappointed as looked at Nalan Yang. She never even looked at Feng Ruqing, not even once. Empress Nalan, I just want to apologize and I have no other meaning. I never thought that you'll think that much. If my presence annoys you, then Qing Yuan and I will return to the Fengyun Manor now. We won't appear in front of you anymore. The way she spoke of Fengyun Manor was nonchalant. But, it seemed like she was showing off Qing Yuan's identity in an underlying manner. Qing Yuan froze and it seemed like his feet were planted onto the ground. Xian tugged at him but he still did not move. She turned and saw that Qing Yuan was still fixing his gaze on Nalan Yang. The man's forehead was covered with cold sweat. He felt Nalan Yang's cold and strong presence clearly. He wanted to defend Xian. Nalan Yang scanned him coldly. Her cold and stern voice prohibited him from speaking. Shut up. It was customary for Qing Yuan to obey Nalan Yang's order. He kept his mouth shut after her order. He did not dare to speak anymore. So, he had no choice but to wink at Xian vigorously so that she could understand. Empress. Xian thought that Nalan Yang was talking to her. She sighed. I told you I have no other meaning. I just want to give you an explanation. Why did you ask me to shut up? Don't tell me that Nalan family owns the whole world. No one else can talk anymore. There was a flash of coldness in Nalan Yang's eyes. She laughed coldly and said, You said that you're from the Fengyun Manor? How come the Fengyun Manor stoop to so low a level like this that they would accept anyone? I'll never be able to pay off her deep love. Feng Ruqing suddenly appeared in front of Xian and she kicked Xian's chest harshly. Qing Yuan was unable to respond and Xian was flung into the air before falling down heavily onto the ground. I'm sorry. I can't control my leg whenever I hear Tang Yu's name. Feng Ruqing smiled happily. Why don't you mention her name more often? Xian was speechless. She nearly vomited a mouthful of blood. She can't control her leg whenever she hears that name. That woman is just jealous of Tang Yu. She's jealous of the Manor Lady of Fengyun clan and the endless power she has. But, even if she's jealous of the Manor Lady of Fengyun clan, she would never be able to achieve what the Manor Lady of Fengyun clan has, even if she used her whole life to try to achieve that. Chapter 515, Devastated Qing Yuan 3U. Qing Yuan's facial expression changed. He wanted to say something but both Feng Ruqing and Nailan Yang looked at him at the same time. Their voices were stern. Shut up. Get lost. Qing Yuan was speechless. Now I'm not even allowed to talk. Feng Ruqing eyes narrowed. I don't care about your identity. I also don't care about how loyal you were toward Fengyun clan before. My mother said it just now. I'll give you a choice. 1. Leave Xian. 2. Leave Fengyun clan. Qing Yuan was stunned. Xian risked her life for him. She was even willing to be a maid to Tang Yu. If I leave her behind now, then I'll be a cruel person. But, Fengyun clan had always been his home. He was nearly killed before and it was the manor master who had saved him. She had even brought him back to Fengyun clan. He was unwilling to leave Fengyun clan and he was more than unwilling to leave the manor master. Xian, apologize to them. Qing Yuan clenched his fists tightly. He was in pain. Quickly apologize to them. Xian was shocked. It was impossible that she did not notice the change in Qing Yuan even though she might be stupid. Is it because of Nailan Yang? Does she have some kind of relationship with Fengyun clan? Xian got up slowly. Her face was pale and she seemed weak. That helpless smile on her face terrified Qing Yuan. He felt guilty. I'm sorry, Xian. You're very important to me. I'll not leave you behind. But, Fengyun clan is like a home to me and I cannot lose that. Qing Yuan, I'm not wrong. She attacked me first. Why do I have to apologize? Xian smiled softly and turned to Nailan Yang. Liu Yun Kingdom ruined my Long Ao Kingdom first. I don't even hate you for that. I also don't know what mistakes I have done. Feng Ruqing bullied me like that and you still ask me to apologize to them? Even if Nailan Yang has a strong relation with Fengyun clan, it might be only her relationship with the elders. The whole of Fengyun clan still belonged to the Manor Lady of Fengyun clan. She's the rightful owner of Fengyun clan, so, I don't have to apologize to anybody. Xian raised her eyes and smiled pathetically. There were arrogance and pride in her eyes. She would never lower her head. Qing Yuan felt coldness all over his body. He turned his body gingerly and kneeled down heavily with both his knees. He kneeled down in front of Nailan Yang. Please forgive her. Xian is still young and naive. Moreover, she doesn't know anything, so, the man was sobbing and his voice was shaky. In fact, she's not bad. Xian is only ignorant. I can't even reveal the manor master's identity. But, Xian's characteristics are such. She was filled with self-respect and self-love. She might not even admit that she was wrong even if she knew Manor Master's identity. It's simply because, she's that kind of person. If not, I would not have liked her so much. Feng Ruqing walked past Qing Yuan and kicked Xian behind her knee. Xian was forced to kneel down. Grandpa, uncle, cousin. Come now. There was a cold smile on her lips. She looked down at the woman who was kneeling in front of her, condescendingly. Xian's facial expression changed. She wanted to stand up but Feng Ruqing kicked her again. Her voice was filled with arrogance and aggressiveness. The people from the Nailan family had come to stand in front of Xian. They received her greeting with much ease and peace of mind. Chapter 516, Devastated Qing Yuan 4. I didn't tell you how Long Ao Kingdom humiliated my cousin just now because I haven't met you. I didn't know that you're a part of that too. Now, it seems that everyone from Long Ao Kingdom is the same. Qing Yuan paled. He respected the loyalty of the Nailan family. But, he looked down upon what Nailan Jing had done. He never thought that it was wrong to humiliate a useless person. But, He dared not voice out in front of the manor master and the manor lady. He was afraid that he would harm Xian by what he said. So what if I'm useless at that time? So what if my mother is not in Liu Yun Kingdom? My grandpa and my cousin should never be humiliated. They deserve to have you kneeling down to them today. Feng Ruqing did not know how they humiliated the Naylan family then. But she understood some of it from Qing Ling. At that moment, her grandpa was saddened by her and he was weak. How could an old man endure that kind of humiliation? You. For what reason? Xian pursed her lips tightly and there was anger in her eyes. She saw that Qing Yuan was not doing anything. Her heart was cold and there was a disappointment in her eyes. For what reason? Feng Ruqing laughed coldly and said, "For Tang Yu is already a prisoner and my mother is the lady of Fengyun clan." It was like thunder in Xian's head. She lost all her ability to move and had stopped struggling. Her face was pale and she looked at Feng Ruqing's beautiful face in shock. Naylan Yang is the lady of Fengyun clan? Hasn't the manor master of Fengyun clan disappeared for many years? How is Naylan Yang the manor master? All of a sudden, Xian remembered how Qing Yuan had treated Naylan Yang. She thought that Qing Yuan had fallen for her. Although Naylan Yang was not young, she looked like a maiden who was only 20 years old. It was normal if young men fell for her. Now, she finally discovered the truth. Soon, she trembled and turned to look at Qing Yuan. There were tears running down her cheeks. "Qing Yuan, why didn't you tell me earlier? Why?" She screamed her last sentence angrily. It was filled with frustration and despair. There was a bitter smile on Qing Yuan's lips. He wanted to tell Xian the truth, but the manor master's identity was a big secret of Fengyun clan. He was not brave enough to reveal the truth in front of so many people. Even if he were to be kicked out of Fengyun clan, he would never repay the manor master's kindness by taking revenge on her. He would never expose her identity in the public. But he never thought that Feng Ruqing would reveal the manor master's identity herself. If he knew of it sooner, he would remind Xian and there might not be so many issues now. Naylan, who was shocked and his old face was stiff. After a while, he recovered his senses. He asked, helplessly, "What is Fengyun clan? You're always talking about it. It seems like it is an exceptional thing." The whole battlefield fell into a deep silence after Naylan Hu's question. Naylan Yang laughed. "Father, you don't have to know too much. You just have to know that nobody would dare to harm you in the reclusive world in the future other than those three powers." Naylan Hu was stunned. "Does that powerful Fengyun clan belong to my daughter? My daughter went missing for so many years. Now, she has turned out to be so outstanding when she returned. Yanga, the four kingdoms had worked together to bully me before. It's okay. Wait till we resolve the issues here. Then, Chinga and I will go and have tea with them in the four kingdoms. After that, we'll talk about lives with them." Naylan Yang smiled softly. Her voice was gentle. Commensum 3 Liawell, he always was a loyal character. Problem was he stupidly and naively believed that White Lotus dealer still we wouldn't know how it will end with QY. Serves you right, Xian. Dragon_sorceress the shamless White Lotus got the shock of her lifetime. Welp. I'm glad Qing Yuan is loyal to the master of Fengyun Manor. Chapter 517. Devastated Qing Yuan v. Old Qin drank my wine away. Naylan Hu felt that it was even more unfair. What a pitiful man. Naylan Yang gently glanced at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang almost kneeled as he was so shocked, then he cried and said, "Old General, when did I drink your wine? It was you who gave it to us." Naylan Hu harumphed and said, "I don't care. Since all of you have drunk too much of it and you guys can't spit it out and give it back to me, I think it's fine to let me vent my anger on all of you." Qin Feiyang was speechless. So this old fellow is acting unreasonably now? Also, the Liu family's little lad nearly coerced your daughter to death. The old fellow started to mention the same thing again. Naylan Yang's sounded cold as her face grew cold. Who coerced my daughter to death? Mother, that's all in the past. Feng Ruqing felt very awkward. That was all done by the previous owner of this body. How embarrassing it is for grandfather to mention it in front of so many people. Also, that filthy Liu Rong had cheated away your iron-blooded token. Not only had she fed and grown Qing'er into a 250-1, but she also led her to become a villain. Feng Ruqing was speechless. Grandfather, please stop saying it. Am I someone who doesn't need to keep up with a reputation? Also, even though you are referring 250 as weight, it's very easy for others to misunderstand it when you blurt it out like this. Nailin Yang's face grew even longer as she had forgotten the two people kneeling in front of her. Is she dead? I would like to see her if she's still alive. Back then, she knew it was Liu Rong who had poisoned Feng Tianyu. It was a pity that she could not show up then. Also, she knew it well that Feng Tianyu did not visit Liu Rong that night. Before she lost her memories, she had sneaked a look at Qing'er several times when Qing'er was still a clever and obedient little girl. She would never imagine that Liu Rong would actually get on with Qing'er and also, maliciously wanted to ruin her whole life. Also, the Long Ao Kingdom's prince invaded our land. If Qing'er did not get back in time, our imperial city would have already been destroyed back then. However, not only had the prince threatened for Qing'er to be his concubine, he had also insulted her. Nailin Yang clenched her fists tightly as she was burning with anger. Nobody could bully her daughter. Manor Master, Qing Yuan's voice was weak as he seemed eager to explain something. Nailin Yang glanced at Qing Yuan with her enraged eyes. You can get the hell out of here now, but Xian stays. We will get even with her about the matters of Long Ao Kingdom. Qing Yuan became flustered. Manor Master, that's Long Ao Kingdom's prince's deeds. It has nothing to do with Xian. I know well of her disposition as she will never bully any other person. Nailin Yang glared at Qing Yuan's anxious face. If it weren't because I've adopted you on my own, if it weren't because of your loyalty to Fengyun Manor, you would have already been a cripple by now. Xian looked panicked as she quickly turned to look at Qing Yuan. Her pretty eyes were flooded with tears as she looked anxious and pitiful. Qing Yuan, I'm scared. Such simple 5 words were enough to prick Qing Yuan's heart. However, he did not notice the hatred behind Xian's eyes. Nailin Yang was the manor master of Fengyun Manor. Therefore, Nailin Jing was also a member of Fengyun Manor. That was so unfair. Why had Nailin Yang not showed up earlier? That was all Nailin Yang's fault. If she had returned a year earlier, she would have never broke off her engagement with Nailin Jing. A guardian would be no match for Fengyun Manor Master's nephew. However, Xian understood that Nailin Jing would never accept her again. Now, all she could grasp in her hand was only Qing Yuan. Qing Yuan loosened his clenched fists and said, Manor Master, I am willing to leave Fengyun Manor. Also, back then, I had taken the sword's attack for you, and you've promised me that you would do me a favor. I beg you to give Xian a chance to live, is that okay? Chapter 518. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants. Nailin Yang looked down expressionlessly at the youth who was kneeling at the inferior side of the room. It was as if she was looking at a stranger. Nailin Yang had actually spared a thought for Qing Yuan out of courtesy of their old friendships. However, their friendships faded along with Qing Yuan's words. Are you sure? Qing Yuan's heart slowly sank. To him, Fengyun Manor was his home. A home where he would never want to leave for the rest of his life. Every member of Fengyun Manor was his family. However, he was the only person Xian had in this world. Would Xian not be all alone if he abandoned her? How could he bear to leave her alone? I'm sorry, Manor Master. 2 streams of tears ran down Qing Yuan's cheeks as he violently knocked his head against the ground. Even if he had kowtowed until his forehead bleeds, still, it was not enough for him to express his guilt toward Fengyun Manor. Nailin Yang looked cold as she said, Will you not regret it? Your courtier does not regret it. Qing Yuan lifted his head that was covered in fresh blood. His handsome face looked resolute but was filled with agony. To choose between Fengyun Manor and Xian. Finally, he decided to go with Xian. You would still not leave her even if you have to turn your back on my Fengyun Manor? Nailin Yang finally broke into a smile. Her smile was as bright as the moon, and her eyes were as shiny as the stars. Yes. His face looked as pale as paper. It seemed like Qing Yuan had used all of his strength to say that last word as he gritted his teeth tightly. Qing Yuan, I really admire your infatuation with her. I hope you won't regret it, in the future. It was such a pity that Qing Yuan had dedicated his passion of love to the wrong person. Nalan Yang would not keep him in Fengyun Manor anymore because of Xian. Xian, such a woman, all of her schemes would be exposed with only a sentence. However, Qing Yuan held her too dearly to see her true colors. If that was what he wished for, she would give him her blessings as that was the least she could do for him before their friendship ended. From then on, Qing Yun and Fengyun Manor would not be related anymore. Mother. Feng Ruqing gently smiled as she stepped forward. If you have finished speaking, it's my turn to speak now. Nalan Yang was shocked as she remained silent. She took 2 steps backward and gazed at Feng Ruqing with her dazzling eyes. What do you want to do? Xian asked with her gritted teeth and screwed up face as she saw Feng Ruqing approaching. Feng Ruqing gently smiled. Nothing. I just wanted to be sure if you are really in love with him. If everything did not come out of the wash, she might have already abandoned Qing Yuan as soon as she was aware of Nalan Yang's identity. Then, she would pin all the blame on her father for breaking the engagement with Nalan Jing. However, Xian was not that stupid to the extent where she would still believe that Nalan Jing would still choose her after so many things had happened. Therefore, her eyes were sparkling in resoluteness while facing Feng Ruqing's questions. I've mentioned before that I'm a woman who does not cling on to status and power. I love him not because of his status in Fengyun Manor, and I love him only because he's Qing Yuan. If one day, he's not a member of Fengyun Manor anymore, I'm still willing to be with him even if I have to starve with him. Even if Qing Yuan was not Fengyun Manor's guardian anymore, he was strong enough to protect her in this mainland. She would be free from the worries of living in a suffering life. Oh. Feng Ruqing seemed to be smiling. He had defended a sword attack for my mother in exchange for your life. Therefore, he is even with my mother now. However, there's still something that he owes Fengyun Manor, and he hasn't paid it all back yet. Chapter 519. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants. Xian was shocked. What do you mean? Feng Ruqing laughed harder. Nothing, I just want to ask you that if Qing Yuan were to fall to a lower tier, would you still want to be with him? Qing Yuan falling to a lower tier, Xian's face suddenly grew pale. If Qing Yuan's tier decreased, he would be worse than the previous Nalan Jing. Feng Ruqing, Qing Yuan has been faithful to Fengyun Manor throughout his whole life and has never done anything wrong. Why are you being so cruel to him? Xian was hysterical now as if Feng Ruqing had done some unforgivable evils. How are you different from the past by doing so? Feng Ruqing gently smiled. He has turned his back on Fengyun Manor, and I'm just taking back the things that belong to Fengyun Manor. If it weren't because of Fengyun Manor, he wouldn't have achieved such advancement. How could he simply disown himself from Fengyun Manor with just a mere sentence? Qing Yuan's body became stiff. He knew all the words that Fengyun Manor had mentioned was the truth. Indeed, he had been enjoying countless of Fengyun Manor's resources, or else he would not be that powerful now. Mother, what tier was he in when he first entered Fengyun Manor? Feng Ruqing gently smiled and asked. The corners of Nalan Yang's lips gently lifted. He had just reached true warrior tier back then. I'm not an unreasonable person too. If you had already reached true warrior tier when you first arrived at Fengyun Manor, then I'll demote you back to advanced true warrior tier. How is that? All these people, they weren't contributing but have been enjoying Fengyun Manor's resources. How could they just forget everything and leave with just a mere sentence? Excuse me. Spit out what you've eaten from Fengyun Manor. Xian's eyes widened. Her body was trembling as she pointed at Feng Ruqing angrily. You, Xian, stop talking. Qing Yuan could not bear to hear more as he finally shouted Xian to stay down. Xian's eyes turned red as she looked aggrieved. Qing Yuan, it's just that I feel bad for you. You have been faithful to Fengyun Manor for your whole life, but they treat you like in return. Qing Yuan gently pursed his lips and said, Our Manor lady is right, if it weren't because of Fengyun Manor for the past 10 years, I would only be an advanced true warrior by now. She is being very kind to me. Therefore, I'm willing to take it. Xian's body went stiff as she looked flustered. No. Never. If Qing Yuan were demoted back to advanced true warrior tier, then he would have nothing left for her to be fond of. She must not let Feng Ruqing do so. Qing Yuan turned to look at Feng Ruqing and vigorously kowtowed to her twice. Manor lady, Fengyun Manor has been helping me a lot throughout my whole life. However, Xian is the love of my life. I cannot bear to leave Fengyun Manor, but I can't leave her alone. Thank you, Manor lady, and Manor master, for blessing our love. The man ended up with a lump in his throat. Fresh tears ran down his cheeks before the old tears could fade away. To be loyal and to love, he could not do both at the same time. And he had chosen Xian instead of Fengyun Manor. Don't thank me first. Feng Ruqing seemed to be smiling as she turned to look at Xian. There's still a chance to turn back. It all depends on Xian's decision. Xian clenched her fists tightly as she looked disgusted. Manor, Nailan Yang glanced at Qing Yuan coldly before he could say something. He felt as if there was a 1,000-pound weight pressing him down as he could not even speak. Feng Ruqing approached Xian with a laughing face. Since you're deeply in love with Qing Yuan, I believe that you will give the very best of you to him. Chapter 520. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants. 3 Xian lowered her head and remained in silence. Feng Ruqing continued, if you are willing to give the very best of you to him, why don't you go to my Liu Yun kingdom and accompany your father and your brother? Then I'll let go of Qing Yuan. Xian looked disgusted. To accompany those two persons in the Liu Yun kingdom, did not that mean she would be one of the captives too? If Qing Yuan's level was demoted, she could easily find a new person to replace him with her beauty. However, if she were to become captive, she would lose all of her freedom for the rest of her life. You're so deeply in love with him as you're willing to starve and not leaving him behind. Why are you reluctant to do such a small matter? Feng Ruqing smiled and slowly turned around. Mother, now I can see it's all your courtier's wishful thinking. I can see that Princess Xian doesn't really love him. Qing Yuan could let go of the status and be demoted for her, but Xian is not willing to give up on her freedom. Xian panicked and turned to look at Qing Yuan. She noticed the doubt in his eyes, and her heart suddenly jolted. I'm not, mother. Feng Ruqing stopped Xian with her cold and deep voice. We still have a lot of things to deal with, and we must not waste too much of our time on such insignificant people. They should just go away. Oh, by the way, Feng Ruqing paused as she swung her hands. Then, a spirit herb fell into her hand. The Grade 4 Spirit Serene Grass. You will be downgraded by a huge tier after taking it. Since you're an advanced spirit warrior now, a huge tier is just enough to drop you back to advanced true warrior tier. Take it before you get out from here. Qing Yuan stretched out his trembling hand to receive the spirit herb from Feng Ruqing. He swallowed it without any hesitation. His breath turned weak as soon as he swallowed the spirit herbs. In a blink of an eye, he fell back to true warrior tier. Manor master, manor lady. Qing Yuan closed his eyes in agony and slowly opened it again. Your servant bids farewell. He turned away resolutely and headed in another direction. He was not regretful in choosing Xian. However, he was still passionate about Fengyun Manor from the bottom of his heart. Xian looked at Qing Yuan, dumbfoundedly. He swallowed it. He had really swallowed it. Why? Xian's whole face turned pale. However, she knew it well that it was not the time to fall out with Qing Yuan. She hurried a few steps to catch up with him. Qing'er, what you've given him wasn't spirit serene grass. Nailan Yang smiled bitterly as she shook her head and sighed. The corners of Feng Ruqing's lips were gently lifted. Indeed. After all, he is still your subject in the past, and since he is really faithful to Fengyun Manor, I'm just giving him a warning. 3 months are enough to change everything. His ability would stay in advanced true warrior tier for 3 months as he could not absorb any spiritual chi at the moment. However, everything would be restored after 3 months. In fact, Generally, in people's viewpoint, true warrior Tyr was already a powerhouse, but Xian did not think so. 3 months of demotion. If he still could not recognize her true color, then he was really foolish and hopeless. Nalan Yang felt a warmth inside her heart because eventually, her daughter still showed mercy to him. Let's hope that after this time, Qing Yuan would never disappoint them again. There's still one thing, mother. Feng Ruqing's eyes sank a little. No matter how regretful Qing Yuan would be in the future, he is not fit to stay in Fengyun Manor anymore. Just in case his stupidity brings harm to Fengyun Manor in the future. Chapter 521. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants for if Feng Ruqing's mother had not shown up earlier, perhaps a few years later. Xian's presence would have really turned the situation in Fengyun Manor disastrous. Therefore, no matter what decision Qing Yuan would make in the future, he was no longer fit to stay in Fengyun Manor anymore. Feng Ruqing had been really kind to help him recognize a person's true color. Therefore, they would not need to keep in touch anymore. Okay. As for this matter, Nalan Yang had already known what she should do without Feng Ruqing reminding her. A person who could leave Fengyun Manor anytime. It was true that he did not deserve to be kept in the manor anymore. They had already given their best to him. Mother. Feng Ruqing squinted and said, since fetching you back home, there's still a lot of other things that I haven't dealt with yet. The 4 kingdoms that had allied to invade Liyun Kingdom, she must get even with them. Father, big brother. Nalan Yang muttered and paused for a while before she continued, you guys may go back to Liyun Kingdom and wait for me first. Tianyu, you have been away from the palace for quite a while, there's still a lot of government affairs to deal with. It will be fine for me and Qing'e to deal with the 4 kingdoms. Feng Tianyu nodded and said, I really have a lot of things to deal with. This time, he left without saying anything more. There was still a lot of mess for him to clean up and also thousands of people for him to pacify and take care of. Therefore, he must first go back and sort it all out. Xiao Qing. Tang Yin looked at Feng Ruqing, pitifully. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and patted her little head. My cousin is hurt, and you're the one whom I trust the most here. Would you please help me take care of him? All of Tang Yin's grievances completely vanished as her face blossomed with a joyful smile. Okay, Xiao Qing. Xiao Qing said the person whom she trusted the most was only her. That implied that she had occupied quite some space in Xiao Qing's heart. Master Nalan and Nalan Zhongqian who were nearby were speechless. So that was what it was. They were no match for a little girl in Qing'e's heart. Only Nalan Jing turned to look at Tang Yin as soon as he heard Feng Ruqing's words. The corners of his cold lips lifted into a vague smile that was hardly noticeable. You, little girl, you seem a bit familiar. Nalan Zhongqian frowned as he shot a suspicious glance at Tang Yin. Oh, now I remember. Some time ago, it was you who had broken our General Manor's door? Tang Yin's body suddenly went stiff. Feng Ruqing looked at Tang Yin hesitantly. General Manor's big door, you did it. Didn't you say that it was Chen Ning who broke it? Master Qin had also recognized Tang Yin and surprisingly said, now I remember too, you've pulled up the ancient tree that was located in front of our Qin family's door and mentioned that you wanted to make it a gift to someone. Tang Yin almost cried and denied, no, I didn't. Chen Ning who did all of that, it wasn't me. Xiao Qing, you must believe me, I'm not that kind of person. What should she do? If Xiao Qing found out that she was the one behind it all, would she feel sick of her crude manners and never like her anymore? She had been behaving herself for quite a long time, why would the people suddenly think of and remember her past? Could they not just treat her like she was invisible? I admit that I've hurt a pig by accident, but I did not do any other things. It's all Chen Ning. Tang Ying abruptly dragged Chen Ning and pushed her in front of Feng Ruqing. Chen Ning did it all. I don't lie. Feng Ruqing said nothing. Are you sure you've only hurt a pig? Didn't you sit on that pig until it died? Chen Ning was dumbfounded as she got dragged and was pushed in front of Feng Ruqing by Tang Yin. Chapter 522. The Four Kingdoms emperors who were scared off of their pants v Qian Ning came back to her senses after quite a while. Our little lady is elegant and she's not that kind of person. That pig rushed under our little lady's but on its own. Our little lady didn't mean to do that. Tang Yin nodded. That's right. Xiao Qing, elegant, I didn't break people's houses' walls nor bombed their houses. Also, I didn't destroy Grandfather Tang Yi's storage room. It's all Qian Ning who had done it, not me. Feng Ruqing said nothing as she slowly turned her head and looked at Qian Ning sympathetically. To be made a scapegoat for your little lady for so many years, it's really tough for you. Qian Ning's face was filled with annoyance. Little lady, don't you think your words are an unsought confession? How could you make the princess believe you're an elegant woman? Feng Ruqing glanced at Neilan Jing and started to feel worried. I want you to take care of my cousin. You wouldn't bomb him as well, would you? I won't, and I never will. Tang Yin was anxious. Am I not your most trusted person? Why would I bomb cousin? If I really want to bomb someone, I would only bomb that Liu family. Besides, isn't Qian Ning around me? I have so many people to bomb, and why would I bomb cousin? Feng Ruqing was still a bit worried. Uncle, keep an eye on this little girl and just tell me if she ever breaks anything. Oh, and don't let her get into the palace. And also, never let her enter the princess manor again. Back then, Tang Yin had been behaving herself since Feng Ruqing was staying inside the princess manor. She had just found out Tang Yin had caused all those accidents just now. Now, she and her mother were going for a tea break in the Four Kingdoms. It was hard to say that Tang Yin would not destroy the princess manor. Don't worry, I will help you take good care of her, Neilan Zhongqian smiled and said. This little girl, she's a bit strong, but she looks docile. Everything should be okay. Chenna. Feng Ruqing turned to look at Qin Chen. Her eyes were soft and gentle. Go back and wait for me. I'll be back soon. The young lad's eyes were bright, and his smile was genuine and pure, just like a white paper. All the coldness he had before had disappeared, leaving behind only a sense of warmth. Okay. Feng Ruqing gently turned around after she had given all her orders. Mother, let's go. It was just time for them to get even with them. If they were looking for someone, nobody could run away from them. Since the powerhouses of Four Kingdoms had fallen apart, all the people living inside the Four Kingdoms were jittery. Especially when they heard Feng Ruqing had left Liu Yun Kingdom in a rage and bringing along a troop of people with her. Just like a tortoise, they were so terrified that they wished they could hide inside a tortoise's shell. Fortunately, several days had passed, and they still have not heard from Liu Yun Kingdom. The crowd started to feel relieved and relaxed. Within Ziyun Kingdom, Emperor Ouyang Wen was in the court and listening to his courtiers' reports, bored. Suddenly, to report to your majesty. An anxious voice came from outside the palace's court. Then, a courtier hurried in as he seemed worried. This is your courtier to report to your majesty. Liu Yun Kingdom's princess. Feng Ruqing has arrived to visit your majesty. She's waiting outside the palace now. At first, Ouyang Wen was supporting his head with his palm, looking lazy and sloppy. However, the courtier's words were frightening enough to make him fall from his throne and roll onto the ground. He quickly stood up and adjusted his crown. He could not care much of the royal manners as his voice and body were trembling. Who did you say have arrived here? Liu Yun Kingdom's princess, Feng Ruqing. Chapter 523. The Four Kingdoms emperors who were scared off of their pants. 6 Bang. Ouyang Wen trembled and sat his butt on the floor. He seemed panicked as he swallowed his saliva hard. How many people has she brought along? Only 2. 2. Ouyang Wen was dumbfounded. Ziyun Kingdom had thousands of powerful armies and masters. How daring was she to come with only 2 people? Another one is, it won't be. Neilan, who that old fellow? It's said that the old fellow is still alive. I don't know who else she would have brought along besides him. Your Majesty. The courtier's voice was trembling as his body was covered with a smell of urine. It was apparent that he had already been scared off of his pants. Another one, they say it's Neilan Yang, Just like a massive strike, the sentence had violently struck Ouyang Wen's head. He was really shocked. Then, he asked in a trembling voice, "Who's the other person that you've mentioned just now?" She said she's Liu Yun Kingdom's empress, Nalan Yang. So far, there was only an empress in Liu Yun Kingdom. And the name, Nalan Yang, had always been a nightmare to the four kingdoms. Ouyang Wen panicked. He tried to stand up from the ground several times, but failed. By rights, all the courtiers, eunuchs, and maidservants in the palace should step forward to hold him up. However, because of the name Nalan Yang, everyone was feeling terrified that no one even bothered to take care of Ouyang Wen, who was still sitting on the floor. Nalan Yang, is she not dead? Why did she show up again? Your Majesty. A civilian courtier cried out. I've given the warning before to not lay finger on Liu Yun Kingdom. Even if Nalan Yang is already dead, Liu Yun Kingdom is not a kingdom that we should provoke. We can learn from Long Ao Kingdom as the best example of this. Now, look, Nalan Yang's so angry that she has crawled out of her grave. We, Ziyun Kingdom, will be next, right after Long Ao Kingdom. All the courtiers who had supported Ouyang Wen before were very regretful at the moment. Why did they go against Liu Yun Kingdom when they could have lived a good life? Great. Now, Feng Ruqing was here, and Nalan Yang was also here too. One was an old nightmare. Another one was why the people were frightened. Your Majesty. Another courtier cried out as he wiped away the tears from his eyes. It was Feng Ruqing who ended Long Ao Kingdom. I've told you earlier that the Nalan family's women are way more terrifying than their men. However, you didn't listen and insisted on attacking Liu Yun Kingdom. Great, what should we do now? The corners of Ouyang Wen's lips twisted. Before he could say anything, two figures were already approaching the palace's entrance before finally coming into his vision. At that very moment, Ouyang Wen's pupils shrank as he started to have difficulty breathing. His heart was suffused with great panic as his legs went limp. He could not even run for his life then. Ouyang Wen, it's been a while. Nalan Yang was laughing hysterically. I didn't expect you to have bigger guts now. Back then, you would run away as soon as you see me, but now you're bold enough to invade my Liu Yun Kingdom? Yeah. Just like the last straw, her last word was capable of crushing him. Finally, Ouyang Wen could not stand facing them and blacked out as soon as he closed his eyes. Feng Ruqing was stunned for quite a while. This fellow was too frightened and had fainted immediately. With such extents of bravery, how dare he invaded Liu Yun Kingdom? Mother, let's bring Ouyang Wen back and hand it to father. The corners of Feng Ruqing's lips gently lifted as she turned and looked at the courtiers behind. From now on, this Ziyun Kingdom will be my Liu Yun Kingdom's subject. Liu Yun Kingdom will choose Ziyun Kingdom's emperor. As for you all. Chapter 524. The Four Kingdoms' Emperors Who Were Scared Off of Their Pants. 7. She looked fierce. Those who were on Ouyang Wen's side will naturally become my Liu Yun Kingdom's captive and be punished according to his wrongdoings. And for those who are innocent, we will not treat you heartlessly. Feng Ruqing never liked war. If war ever happened, the people and soldiers who rushed to the front were the ones who got hurt the most. Some of the kingdoms were too fond of killing as they did not care about common people's lives. Just like a bandit who rushed into the village, they robbed, tortured, and killed anyone they encountered recklessly. Therefore, she would try her best to avoid unnecessary killing. But also, she would not let go of anyone who was guilty. All the courtiers had become despondent. They knew it well that it was all Ouyang Wen's mistake, but eventually, they had to bear the consequences. The winner took it all. In fact, Liu Yun Kingdom was capable of unifying all the countries. Mother, let's go. I've already informed all the spirit beasts nearby, and they will come and sort out the rest. Feng Ruqing paused a while before she continued to speak in front of the crowd. There will be some spirit beasts coming to the imperial city after an hour. All of you must let them enter. The crowds were trembling with their pale faces. Spirit beasts coming to the imperial city? Would the imperial city not be covered in a river of blood? Would they not become food in the spirit beast stomachs? Feng Ruqing was able to read their minds and gently smiled. Compared to some of the human, the spirit beasts are not that fond of killing as you think. If you don't provoke them and not enter their domain, they would not simply kill a person. The crowd felt relieved as soon as they heard that. However, Feng Ruqing's calm voice rang out again just as they started to feel relaxed. Of course, provided that they are full. The crowd paled in terror and almost cried. Would the spirit beasts eat them if they came in hunger? Mother, let's go. We have to head to the next kingdom and have a chit-chat about life with their emperor. Let's hope that the next emperor would not black out that fast. This emperor had fainted before she could even start speaking, within Tianxian Kingdom. This time, both Feng Ruqing and Neilan Yang did not get inside the palace as easy as they could the last time. A lot of soldiers rushed out and besieged them as soon as they reached the city gate. It was a coincidence that Zhong Yun, the leader of that troop of soldiers, was the one who had met with Neilan Yang before. However, they only met once before. Neilan Yang was a little skinny right now. Nobody could recognize her immediately unless it was a person who was very familiar with her. Therefore, Zhong Yun could not recognize Neilan Yang with his one-time meeting experience with her. However, Feng Ruqing had a very similar look to Neilan Yang. Therefore, Zhong Yun recognized Feng Ruqing as soon as he saw her. Your Highness, this is Tianxian Kingdom, and you came without informing us in advance. Is that not a little inappropriate? In a suit of armor, Zhong Yun stepped forward and asked, expressionlessly. Feng Ruqing gently smiled. Then, why didn't you inform Tianxian Kingdom's emperor that today, I, Feng Ruqing, am here to take his dog life away? Zhong Yun was stunned. He knew that the four kingdoms had sent their powerhouses to Liu Yun Kingdom, but he did not know that they had fallen apart. Such a piece of disgraceful news, the emperor would never tell a general, who guarded the city gate, like him. Therefore, he did not know that the powerhouses of the four kingdoms had fallen apart. He thought they had taken Liu Yun Kingdom down, and Feng Ruqing had come to seek revenge for her kingdom, alone. Your Highness, our emperor does not welcome any guests at the moment, please return. Zhong Yun's eyes sank. He would never let Feng Ruqing enter the city no matter what. That was his responsibility and duty. Chapter 525. The Four Kingdoms emperors who were scared off of their pants ate. Feng Ruqing squinted and said, Are you sure you want to stand in our way? She respected every soldier. Normally, besides the inevitable killing on the battlefield between two armies, she would not simply kill the opponent if they did not commit any heinous crime. However, that would be another way round if the opponent insisted on standing in her way. Suddenly, the air around Feng Ruqing sank as the surrounding aura turned gloomy. Just like an overwhelming waterfall, she looked overbearing with her cold eyes, as if she was the one who ruled the world. She looked just like Neilan Yang, who led the army and battled in the past. Zhong Yun was holding a long sword with his trembling hand. Your Highness, the corners of Feng Ruqing's lips gently lifted. Has Tianxian Kingdom's emperor not told you guys that the powerhouses sent by the four kingdoms to my Liu Yun Kingdom have all fallen apart? Suddenly, Zhong Yun lifted his head. He asked timidly with his pale face. What did you say? The four kingdoms' powerhouses have fallen apart. What are you holding on to? Feng Ruqing slowly stepped forward. Zhong Yun's heart sank deeper along with her steps. It was as if something was pressing down his back to prevent him from straightening himself up. If Tianxian Kingdom's soldiers surrender now, I will spare you life. However, if you insist on protecting him, I really esteem your loyalty, but do you really think that he, such a person, deserves your sacrifices to protect him? Feng Ruqing would not talk that much to them if she were facing a family or clan. However, everyone in front of her was a soldier. Liu Yun Kingdom would never force anyone to join their army. If someone were to join them, they joined it voluntarily. However, a lot of soldiers in the armies of the other kingdoms were coerced to join them, and they could never go back to their homes no matter they were alive or dead. There were a lot of things that they did not do with their own intentions. They were all forced and were even forced to leave their homes. Therefore, she was willing to give them another chance. A second chance to choose again. No matter what it was, It was all the useless emperor's fault. The inferiors always did the most dangerous thing, but they always benefit the least. Zhongyun did not say anything. He was blue in his face as he held the sword in his hand, tightly. All the soldiers standing behind him remained in silence as well. Nobody could tell what was running in their minds. For my Liu Yun Kingdom's army, we don't simply accept anyone who asks to join. Any villain who bullies, robs, or kills the commoners, Liu Yun Kingdom will never accept them. However, Feng Ruqing paused. My Liu Yun Kingdom's army enjoys the ultimate freedom. As long as they never back off on the battlefield, they can leave the army whenever they wish to. I, of Liu Yun Kingdom, will never simply invade another kingdom or kill the people. We will not attack unless we are attacked. Also, we will never instigate you to rob or kill or do anything that goes against your conscience. On top of that, we will never treat a soldier like an object. The sword in Zhongyun's hand slid off his palm and fell to the ground. He kneeled down. As the tears ran down his cheeks, he cried hysterically with his hands covering his face. Sadness, agony. Back then, he was talented enough to be the general of a general manor. However, just because he had violated the military orders of not killing the ordinary person without any reason, he was demoted and expelled to a porter here. Also, none of them liked war. Who does not cherish their own lives? Does anyone in the world never care for their lives? Back when he was serving in the barracks, besides him, who was the one who rushed to the front to protect the country every single time? He contributed the most, but he enjoyed the least. However, he was demoted into a porter just because he refused to go against his own conscience. Chapter 526. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants. 9 We really can't fight against. They had surrendered before they even started to fight Feng Ruqing. They had lost the battle, thoroughly. Zhongyun slowly stood up after he finished crying. He swung his hand and said through his gritted teeth, "Open the gate." Yes. The crowd standing behind him had already opened the door. Zhongyun's voice spoke when Feng Ruqing was about to enter. "Your Highness, I have some old comrades in the barracks who didn't join the army on their own. They were all forced to be in here. Could you let them return to their homes?" Feng Ruqing stopped and nodded. "I've said that all the soldiers in Liu Yun Kingdom joined us voluntarily. We don't force." Zhongyun slowly exhaled. Those who were forced to leave their homes. Finally, they could go back to their homes now. Perhaps, Tianxian Kingdom being annexed by Liu Yun Kingdom was actually a good thing to the world. Chinga. Nailin Yang gently held Feng Ruqing's hand and smiled. "You did a really great job here." Feng Ruqing smiled and said, "Perhaps, I have always had a good impression for soldiers." "Why?" Nailin Yang asked, surprised. Feng Ruqing lowered her eyes and stayed quiet. "Why?" It was because she was a citizen of Huaxia. Members of Huaxia have always had a good feeling toward the military. Now, she would definitely give them another chance since her grandfather was a soldier too. She might not be capable of doing that if they were not soldiers. Tianxian Kingdom's emperor was considered far better than Ziyun Kingdom's emperor. At least he did not get frightened by Feng Ruqing and Nailin Yang to the point of fainting. However, his pale face revealed his despair. After they took a tour in Tianxian Kingdom, Feng Ruqing and Nailin headed to the other two kingdoms. Both of the two kingdoms' emperors had already known that they would come. However, they were still scared off of their pants even though they were mentally prepared. After this chaos, the world had come to know that the world did not need to be in any fight anymore. It was because Liu Yun Kingdom had already unified all the kingdoms. In front of the graves of martyrs within Liu Yun Kingdom, Nailin who raised his hand and poured a glass of spirit wine onto the grave. "Dear fellows, Liu Yun Kingdom is in peace now, and those people who had invaded us have paid their price too. For this toast, I would like to express my gratitude to all the heroes who had protected our land. First, let's give a toast to the heroes. From now on, war will never happen again. All of you can rest in peace now. We did not let your blood be bled in vain." Second toast, let's wish you're still a member of Liu Yun in your next life. And for the third toast, Since we couldn't spend more time to drink good wines together, I hope many years later, we will be reunited in somewhere else, with the Naylan family. And then, everyone would toast for each other. Father. Naylan Zhongqian had appeared behind Naylan, who before anyone noticed. He knew his father was in deep grief. Naylan Zhongqian looked at the spirit wine that Naylan who had poured on the ground. His lips twitched, but he remained in silence. The heroes of Liu Yun Kingdom, they deserved the best. Your sister and your cousin should have returned by now. Naylan who sighed deeply. Let's go. I won't let go of any of the doggy emperors who brought up the battle. I will use their blood to pray for these souls. And also Liu Rong and the people from the reclusive world, their fresh blood were needed to pour on the heroes' souls. That was what they had owed them. Liu Rong and her daughter haven't died yet. Naylan who was a bit surprised. They had been tortured for so many days, how could they be still alive? Chapter 527. The Four Kingdoms Emperors who were scared off of their pants. I guess they have tenacious vitality. Father, haven't you heard of the sentence saying that the good one lives a short life, but the bad one lives for 1,000 years? Liu Rong may not live till the thousands, but she's more tenacious than the other. I guess it will take her several more days to die. Naylan Zhongqian lowered his eyes and continued, she was to be paraded through the streets one every day and tortured by so many people. How lucky that they managed to survive through that and not die yet. Paramount has provided some spirit herbs to prevent them from dying and to live a little longer, just in case the people have no place to vent their anger off, but they have really lived a bit longer than expected. Was the military the only one who wanted to vent their frustration off? There were still a lot of people who had lost their families who would like to do that as well. Someone had to pay for their agony. Naylan Zhongqian only realized what had happened in Liu Yun Kingdom after he came back. However, the anger in his heart was too strong to suppress even by only hearing those descriptions. If Qing'e had not returned in time, Liu Yun Kingdom must have already been destroyed. If it were not because of the help from that little girl Tang Yin, his wife and daughter would almost have left him alone in the world. He would never be capable of bearing such a pain. Therefore, he could not express his gratitude toward Tang Yin with words. He was so grateful to the extent that he already cared no more for General Manner's main door that the little girl had destroyed back then. It's actually good that they are alive. Naylan who laughed twice, coldly. Hasn't she been hating Yang since she was deliberately leading Qing'e astray? She had been abetting Qing'e to the point where Qing'e didn't listen to us anymore. Because of that, you bring them to see Yang when she's back. He paused for a while before he continued. When she meets Yang, there's no more reason for them to be alive. There was some hatred where the old general could never let go for the rest of his life. He could not forgive Liu Rong for tricking his son-in-law. Also, he could never forgive her for everything she had done to Qing'e. If she had thought Yang was already dead, then he would let Yang appear alive in front of her again. To let her die in nightmare and in terror, to let her heart tremble whenever she heard of the name, Naylan Yang, in her next life. No matter how many afterlives she was going to live, she would never show up in front of them again. Okay. Naylan Zhongqian replied as his eyes sank. He seemed to think of something and asked hesitantly. Oh, by the way, Father, why is Feng Rushuang not His Majesty's daughter? How do you know it? Why am I not aware of it? Naylan whose face went stiff, and he coughed twice, awkwardly. I've only found that out a few days before. Back then, you were still in the frontier, so it's normal that you don't know. He would never tell his son that because Feng Ruqing had painted him black by telling him that Naylan who was a person who could not keep a secret. Therefore, he did not tell him about that. Oh, I've always wanted to ask you about an important matter too. Isn't the spirit wine very precious stuff? Why do I always feel that your spirit wine is inexhaustible? Naylan Zhongqian frowned as he asked, hesitantly. Naylan whose body became stiff this time. He laughed out loud, and replied, grinning. Oh, this. I'm just a little luckier because I've always bumped into that spirit wine hawker. Therefore, I've bought a lot back home. Naylan Zhongqian replied admiringly. You and Qing'e often meet the spirit wine hawker, Daya also meets the spirit fruit hawker. Why am I the only who couldn't meet any of them? Father, where did you meet them? I think I might try my luck at the place too. Hee hee. Nalan, who forced out a laugh and patted Nalan Jankian's shoulders. The hawker goes to different places every time, so you can't find him. Also, luck is something that you can never be envious of. Even if you punched him to death, he would never tell him that it was her granddaughter who had given him the spirit wine, just in case this little fellow would bother Chinga and trick all of the spirit wine from her. Chapter 528. He is here for revenge? Nalan Jankian's face turned stiff. However, all he could do was to sigh as he knew his father was telling him the truth. Father, please tell me if you ever meet the hawker again next time. I'd like to know him too. But then, Nalan, who was already headed toward the city without giving him any reply, it was dark and wet inside the prison. Liu Rong huddled on the floor. Her hair was messy as her face was still covered in dry brownish bloodstain. It seemed like she had not been cleaning herself for quite a while. Feng Rushuang was barely conscious next to her, but her eyes were still filled with evil intent. Mother, it's all because of you. Feng Rushuang gritted her teeth tightly. It's all your fault. If it weren't because of you, I wouldn't be in such a situation either. Why did you lie to me? The corners of Liu Rong's lips lifted into a bitter smile. She was wrong. She was really wrong. Back then, she should not have colluded with Jiyu Zhenyang, so she would not have been in such a situation, and also, she would not have given birth to this daughter. Both of you are women, but why do you always lose to Nalan Yang? Why? Feng Rushuang sounded hateful. She would not have become a captive if Liu Rong was not that useless. It was all because of Liu Rong. It was all her fault. Liu Rong's throat was a bit dry as something bitter spread in her mouth too. She wrapped her hands around her knees and sneered. I'm not as good as Nalan Yang in every way, but so what? Didn't you lose to Feng Ruqing too? Mother. Feng Rushuang's face turned pale. She lifted her head and looked at Liu Rong in disbelief. She could not believe that even when her mother knew well that losing to Feng Ruqing was always her insecurity, yet her mother still purposely mentioned it. Creak. The prison's door was pushed open. A guard walked through the door and said coldly, Liu Rong, Feng Rushuang, both of you can get out now. Liu Rong's body went stiff. Fear and sorrow filled her eyes. This was something she had to endure every day. Each day, this group of people would bring them out from the cell and go for a parade in the streets. Then, both of them would be insulted and hurt by the peasants. She had suffered enough. Really enough. The only mistake she had made in her whole life was to have Feng Rushuang with Jiyu Zhenyang. However, she had never regretted being Feng Tianyu's concubine. Liu Rong did not go against the heartless guards while facing them. She straightened herself and walked out of the cell just like a robot. Feng Rushuang fell to her knees in front of the guards. Her voice trembled as her eyes were filled with hope. Has my father returned? Has he returned yet? I want to see him, I want to see him. After all these years, even a man would at least grow some affection to a dog he had been raising. She could not believe that her father would really be that cruel to her since she was his daughter for more than 10 years. The guard looked at Feng Rushuang's face with a sneer. Our emperor is not someone you can simply meet. You've betrayed Liu Yun Kingdom. Therefore, you have to bear the punishment for what you've done. However, someone wants to see you guys today. It's better if you guys follow me to see that person. Liu Rong was shocked. Did somebody want to see them? In Liu Yun Kingdom, who else would still want to see them now? Within the Supreme Princess Manor, two little girls hurried toward Feng Ruqing when she had just entered the manor. At that moment, when Liu Li noticed the girl next to Feng Ruqing, she was stunned as her eyes flashed with surprise, astonishment, and disbelief. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.